A massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between stars. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside the station's largest room, representatives from dozens of alien species sat around a giant circular table. The room buzzed with the sound of different languages being translated through small devices. Ambassador Jake Morrison sat quietly in his chair. He wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on his shoulder. Around him, creatures of all shapes and sizes discussed matters of war and peace across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects with multiple arms. Others had scales that changed color when they spoke. A few resembled walking trees with glowing eyes. Jake had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 3 years. In all that time, he had watched and listened more than he had spoken. The other species treated him like a child who was allowed to sit at the adult table but wasn't expected to contribute anything important. The annual military assessment will now begin, announced the council speaker, a tall being with silver skin and no visible mouth. Its words came from a device attached to its throat. Each member species will report their defensive capabilities and territorial concerns. The Vorthic Empire spoke first. Commander Zilthar stood at his full height of 8 feet. His red skin was covered in battle scars, and his 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. The Vorthic maintain a fleet of 12,000 warships, he growled. Our territory spans 47 star systems. We fear no enemy. Murmurs of respect rippled through the chamber. The Vorthic were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors who had never lost a major battle. Next came the Zephyrian Collective. High Counselor Vexara's blue-scaled head turned toward the center of the table. Her species had large eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. The collective has advanced beyond primitive warfare, she said in a voice like musical chimes. Our energy shields can stop any projectile weapon. Our plasma cannons can melt through any armor. We control the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The representatives nodded in agreement. Everyone knew the Zephyrians had developed faster-than-light travel and energy, weapons that other species could only dream of creating. One by one, each species presented their military strength. The ethereal Dominion spoke of their ancient wisdom and powerful psychic abilities. The Krillian Swarm described their ability to reproduce armies in mere days. The Obsidian Collective explained how their robotic forces never tired or retreated. Finally, the council speaker's artificial voice filled the room again. Earth will now present its military assessment. Jake Morrison stood slowly. Every eye in the room turned toward him. He cleared his throat and began to speak in calm, measured words. Earth maintains a small defense fleet of approximately 200 vessels. Our technology is primarily chemical-based propulsion with basic energy weapons. We have colonized 12 worlds and maintain peaceful relations with our neighbors. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then someone began to laugh. It was a sound like grinding metal. Commander Zelthar finding humor in Jake's words. Soon, others joined in. The laughter spread through the room like wildfire. Chemical propulsion? Vexara's musical voice carried notes of amusement. Do they still use rockets to reach orbit? 200 ships? Another representative wheezed between laughs. My personal escort fleet is larger than that. Commander Zelthar slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. 12 worlds? The Vorthic conquered. 12 worlds in a single campaign season. How long did it take these humans? Centuries? Jake remained standing, his face showing no emotion. He had expected this reaction. Earth prefers to focus on peaceful exploration and scientific research, he said. We believe there are more important things than military conquest. This statement only made the laughter grow louder. A representative from the Void Hunter species spoke up, its voice like grinding stone. Peace? Science? These are the words of prey, not predators. In this galaxy, only the strong survive. The council speaker raised one hand for silence. The assessment of Earth's military capability will be recorded. Classification, Category 5, Non-Threat. Defensive assignment, Outer Rim Sector 7. Jake's eyes widened slightly. Sector 7 was the most dangerous area of known space. It was where pirates, raiders, and other criminals operated freely. The Council was essentially leaving Earth defenseless against any threat that might come their way. With respect, Jake said carefully, Sector 7 has seen increased raider activity. Perhaps a more secure assignment would be appropriate. Commander Zelthar's laughter boomed across the chamber. Scared, little human? Don't worry. No self-respecting warrior would waste time attacking such a pathetic target. Your primitive worlds are beneath notice. Vexara's head tilted to one side. Even pirates have standards, she said with amusement. What would they steal from Earth? Stone tools? Wooden ships? Another representative chimed in. I heard they still use projectile weapons that fire metal pellets. How wonderfully primitive. Do they even have energy shields? Asked another voice. Shields? Commander Zelthar roared with laughter. They probably still use metal armor like ancient savages. Jake Morrison stood through all of this mockery without changing his expression. Inside, he was carefully recording every word, every gesture, every indication of how little these species thought of Earth's capabilities. His small recording device, disguised as a simple pen, captured everything. The assessment is complete. The council speaker announced, Earth will be responsible for its own defense in Sector 7. This meeting is adjourned. As the representatives began to file out of the chamber, several of them passed by Jake's chair. Commander Zelthar stopped directly in front of him. Enjoy your peaceful little worlds while you can, human. This galaxy has a way of teaching hard lessons to those who refuse to learn them. Vexara paused as well. Perhaps you should consider joining a stronger species as a client state. The collective is always looking for new sources of manual labor. Jake nodded politely. Thank you for the advice. I'll be sure to pass it along to my superiors. After the last representative had left, Jake Morrison sat alone in the empty chamber. He touched his pen, stopping the recording, and activated a small communication device hidden in his uniform collar. Morrison to Earth Defense Command, he said quietly. Package delivered. Full assessment recorded. They've taken the bait completely. A voice crackled back through the device. Understood, Ambassador. General Phillips sends her regards. Operation. Underestimate is proceeding as planned. Jake smiled for the first time that day. Tell the General they've assigned us to Sector 7. Exactly where we wanted to be. Copy that. Admiral Clark says the fleet is ready to move into position. How long? Do you think we have? Jake looked around the empty chamber where Earth had just been dismissed as a galactic joke. Based on their reaction today, I'd say someone will try to test us within 3 months. They're so confident in their assessment that they won't bother with proper intelligence gathering. Perfect. Morrison, you've done excellent work. Phase 2 is now active. Jake Morrison stood and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the empty chamber held no hint of the storm that was about to break across the galaxy. Earth had played its role perfectly, appearing weak, helpless, and completely unprepared for the reality of galactic warfare. The other species had no idea what was coming for them. Deep in the asteroid belt of the Korthix system, Warlord Brutex read the intercepted Galactic Council report for the 3rd time. His massive frame filled the command chair of his flagship, the Iron Fang. Thick scales covered his body, and his yellow eyes glowed with predatory interest. Category 5 non-threat, he growled to his second-in-command, Captain Veximer. The humans have been classified as the weakest military force in the galaxy. Veximer A smaller but equally vicious member of the Korthak species leaned over the display screen. The report says they have only 200 ships, sir. Chemical propulsion, basic energy weapons. No significant defenses. Brutex's clawed hand traced across the star map, showing Earth's territory. Look at this, Veximer. 12 worlds. Rich in resources according to our long-range scans. Large population for slave labor, and absolutely no ability to defend themselves. The Korthik Raiders were the most feared pirate organization in 3 sectors of space. They survived by attacking weak targets and avoiding anything that might fight back effectively. For years, they had been looking for a major score, something that would set them up for life. How many ships do we have ready for deployment? Brutex asked. 87 warships, sir. All armed with plasma cannons and boarding pods. Our fastest ships can reach the human territory in 2 weeks. Brutex stood up from his chair. At his full height, he towered over everyone else on the bridge. Begin preparations immediately. We'll take their outer colonies first, then work our way toward their homeworld. They'll surrender everything to save their pathetic lives. While the Korthik prepared their attack, Earth appeared to continue with business as usual. In the city of New Chicago, office workers hurried to their jobs in towering skyscrapers. Space elevators carried cargo and passengers up to orbital stations that looked like ordinary commercial facilities. News broadcasts focused on political debates and sports scores, but beneath the surface, humanity's true military machine was awakening dot in a bunker 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. General Kate Phillips studied reports from across human space. The 50-year-old woman had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her green eyes showed the sharp intelligence that had made her Earth's top military strategist. Admiral Clark's fleet is in position, reported Colonel Denny Wright, her aide. All ships are maintaining their civilian disguises. What about the orbital platforms? Phillips asked. Dr. Rodriguez confirms all weapon systems are ready. The defense satellites are still broadcasting as communications relays and weather monitoring stations. Phillips nodded. For 20 years, Earth had been building its real military in secret. Every civilian space station contained hidden weapons. Every commercial spacecraft could transform into a warship at a moment's notice. The galaxy saw what humanity wanted them to see: a peaceful, weak species focused on exploration and trade. At the Terra Defense Research Institute, Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked late into the night. The 43-year-old scientist had dedicated his life to developing weapons that would give humanity an edge against more advanced alien species. His laboratory was filled with devices that looked like simple tools, but were actually the most sophisticated weapons ever created. The gravitational pulse generators are ready, he told his assistant, Dr. Nancy Kim. One shot can disable an entire enemy fleet. What about the phase shift armor? Nancy asked. Successfully tested. Our ships can become nearly invisible to enemy sensors. They'll never see us coming. Rodriguez smiled grimly. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they still used chemical propulsion and metal projectiles. They had no idea that humanity had developed technology that worked on completely different principles. While other species built bigger guns and stronger shields, humans had learned to manipulate space and time itself. On the bridge of the exploration vessel U.E.'s Horizon, Captain Alex Turner received his coded orders. The message looked like a routine request for geological surveys, but Turner knew how to read between the lines. His ship was being positioned for combat. Set course for the Kepler 442 system, he told his navigator, Lieutenant Beth Collins. Maximum acceleration. Sir, that will take us directly through the shipping lanes where the Korthik raiders have been active. Collins pointed out Turner's expression didn't change. "I'm aware of that, Lieutenant. Execute the order." The U.E.'s Horizon looked like a simple research vessel from the outside. Its hull was painted white with blue stripes, and its sensor arrays appeared designed for scientific observation. But hidden within its structure were weapons that could destroy a small moon dot as the ship jumped faster than light travel. Turner activated his private communication system. "This is Horizon to Nest. We're moving into position." The response came immediately from Earth Defense Command. "Understood, Horizon. You are authorized to defend all human colonies by any means necessary." "Copy that, Nest. We'll be ready." Meanwhile, in the Korthek fleet, Warlord Brutex held a final planning meeting with his ship captains. The holographic display showed the positions of human colonies, with Earth's newest settlement highlighted in red. "New Denver colony," Brutex explained. "Population 200,000. Minimal defenses. Perfect for our first strike." Captain Veximer studied the tactical display. "Intelligence reports show only civilian infrastructure. No military installations. No defense platforms." "Exactly," Brutex said with satisfaction. "We'll demand their surrender. When they comply, we'll take everything of value and sell the population as slaves. Easy profit." Another captain, a scarred veteran named Krexol, raised a question. "What if they call for help from other human worlds?" Brutex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Help? From those pathetic weaklings? Their entire military couldn't stop a single one of our ships. No, they'll surrender immediately when they realize they're facing real warriors." The Korthik fleet began moving toward human space, confident they were about to claim an easy victory. Their ships were armed with the latest plasma weapons and protected by energy shields. Each vessel carried hundreds of warriors trained in close combat. They had never been defeated in open battle. Back on Earth, the final preparations were being made. Colonial Administrator Peter Chun received a priority message at New Denver Colony. The message was short and coded, but its meaning was clear. The test begins now. Chun was a former military officer who had volunteered to run the colony specifically for this moment. He looked like a simple government administrator, but he had commanded troops in 3 different conflicts before taking this assignment. "All department heads to the emergency meeting room," he announced over the colony's communication system. Immediate response required. Within minutes, the colony's leadership had assembled. To any outside observer, they looked like farmers, scientists, and teachers. In reality, they were some of Earth's most skilled military officers, operating under deep cover. "Phase 3 is now active," Chun announced. "All personnel are to report to their assigned positions. This is not a drill." Across the colony, people began moving with the precision of a well-trained military unit. The farmers opened hidden weapons caches. The scientists activated defense systems that had been disguised as research equipment. The teachers took command of underground bunkers that served as command centers. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, who had been working as a geological survey coordinator, walked to her real workplace, a massive underground hangar. Inside, rows of combat mechs stood ready for deployment. Each one was equipped with weapons that could level a city block. "All units, prepare for combat operations," she announced to her team. "Remember, we've been training for this moment for years. Show them what humans are really capable of." The trap was set. The Korthik raiders were coming to attack what they believed was a defenseless human colony. Instead, they would find themselves facing the full might of Earth's hidden military power. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their ships. It was their ability to make enemies underestimate them completely. As the Korthik fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, sensors detected what appeared to be a normal civilian colony. There were no obvious weapons, no military vessels, no signs of preparation for battle. Warlord Brutex smiled as he looked at the peaceful settlement ahead. "Begin the attack," he commanded. "Show these humans what happens when they try to exist in our galaxy without proper protection." The Iron Fang and its escort ships accelerated toward New Denver Colony, completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated military trap ever constructed by the human race. The Korthik fleet emerged from hyperspace like a pack of metal predators. 87 warships arranged themselves in attack formation around New Denver Colony. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and boarding pods, ready to tear apart anything that dared to resist. Warlord Brutex stood on the bridge of the Iron Fang, his yellow eyes fixed on the peaceful settlement ahead. The colony looked exactly as intelligence had predicted. Civilian buildings, commercial spacecraft, and absolutely no visible military defenses. 200,000 helpless humans waited to be conquered. "Open a communication channel," Brutex commanded. "Let's see how quickly these weaklings surrender." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Colonial Administrator Peter Chun. The human looked calm and professional, sitting behind a simple desk in what appeared to be a government office. He wore civilian clothes and showed no signs of fear. "This is Administrator Chun of New Denver Colony," he said in a steady voice. "Can I help you?" Brutex's scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. "I am Warlord Brutex of the Korthik Raiders. You will surrender all resources and population for immediate relocation. Comply, and you will be treated as valuable slaves. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Chun appeared to consider this for a moment. "I'm afraid I can't agree to those terms. Perhaps we could discuss a peaceful resolution?" A Korthik warlord's laughter boomed across the bridge. "Peaceful? You have no weapons, no defenses, no military of any kind. Your entire colony is at my mercy. What makes you think you can negotiate?" "Well," Chun said with a small smile, "you might be surprised by what we can do." Brutex's patience ran out. "You have 5 minutes to begin evacuation procedures. After that, we will take what we want by force." The communication channel closed. Brutex turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the boarding pods. We'll take the administration building first and work our way out from there." "Sir," the navigator called out, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the colony's orbital platforms." Brutex looked at the tactical display. Several large structures orbited the colony, all marked as civilian facilities. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures are increasing rapidly. It looks like they're powering up some kind of equipment." "Probably. Their communications array," Brutex said dismissively. "They're calling for help from other human worlds. Let them. By the time any rescue arrives, we'll be long gone with their resources." On the surface of New Denver Colony, the transformation had already begun. The peaceful settlement that had existed moments before was revealing its true nature. What had appeared to be a farming community was actually one of the most heavily fortified military installations in human space. Peter Chun stood in his real office, not the simple government building shown on the communication screen, but a sophisticated command center buried deep underground. Banks of computers surrounded him, displaying tactical information from across the colony. Officers in military uniforms worked at control stations that managed weapon systems the Korthik couldn't even imagine. "All units report ready," announced Major Lisa Park, the colony's actual military commander. "Phase 4 is now active." Chun activated the colony-wide communication system. "Citizens of New Denver, this is your administrator. The visitors we've been expecting have arrived. Please proceed to your assigned positions." Across the colony, the illusion of civilian life disappeared. The farmers working in the fields dropped their tools and ran to hidden bunkers. The scientists at the research stations activated defense systems that had been disguised as laboratory equipment. The teachers and office workers took their positions at weapons, controls, but the most dramatic change happened in orbit. The civilian platforms that had been broadcasting weather data and communication signals suddenly revealed their true purpose. Massive weapons emerged from hidden compartments. Energy shields activated around structures that had seemed defenseless. Moments before, the UES Horizon, which had been hiding among the commercial traffic, dropped its disguise. The white and blue research vessel, transformed as armor plating, shifted to reveal weapons ports. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge, watching as his ship's true combat capabilities came online. "All stations report ready for combat, Lieutenant," Beth Collins announced. "Weapon systems are fully charged." "Excellent," Turner said calmly. "Let's show our guests what human hospitality really looks like." In the Korthek fleet, alarms began sounding as sensors detected the massive energy buildup. Around the colony, Warlord Brutex stared at the tactical display in growing disbelief. "What is this?" he roared. "Those platforms are generating enough power to level the city." "Sir," the weapons officer called out, "that research vessel is showing military grade. Energy signatures. It's not civilian at all." Before Brutex could respond, the first shots were fired. The orbital platforms opened up with weapons that cut through Korthik shields like paper. Beams of coherent energy struck the raiders' ships, causing explosions that lit up the dark space around the colony. "Impossible," Brutex shouted. "Their technology is supposed to be primitive." The Iron Fang's shields flickered and failed under the assault. Around the fleet, other Korthik ships were suffering the same fate. Weapons that should have been centuries beyond human capability were tearing through their defenses as if they didn't exist. "Return fire," Brutex commanded. "All ships, concentrate on those platforms." The Korthik fleet launched their own attack. Plasma cannons sending streams of superheated energy toward the human defenses. But the beams struck energy shields that absorbed the damage without even flickering. The humans weren't just using advanced weapons. They had defensive technology that made the raiders' attacks completely useless. Captain Turner watched from the horizon as the enemy fleet wasted their ammunition on shields that could withstand the impact of an asteroid. "Begin Phase 5, he ordered. "Show them what happens when you threaten a human colony." The UES Horizon accelerated toward the Korthik fleet, its weapons charging for maximum effect. But it wasn't alone. From hidden positions throughout the system, other ships appeared. What the raiders had thought was empty space was actually filled with human vessels using stealth technology. The Korthik found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see until it was too late. Human ships materialized from nowhere, their weapons already firing. The raiders' formation collapsed as vessels that had been invisible moments before struck from every direction. On the surface of New Denver Colony, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos led her team to the underground hangar. The massive doors opened to reveal rows of combat mechs that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. Each one stood 20 feet tall and was equipped with weapons that could destroy a building. "With a single shot, mount up," Santos ordered. "The enemy has landing pods incoming." The Korthik boarding pods descended toward the colony's surface, their pilots confident that they would face only frightened civilians. Instead, they found themselves landing in the middle of a military operation that had been planned for years. As the first pods touched down, the combat mechs emerged from their hidden positions. The Korthik warriors who stepped out of their transports found themselves facing machines that moved with deadly precision. The raiders' personal weapons bounced harmlessly off the mech's armor, while return fire reduced the invaders to nothing. In seconds. "This is impossible," one of the Korthik captains radioed to Brutex. "They're using technology we've never seen before. Our weapons are useless against them." Brutex watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by forces that weren't supposed to exist. Ships that had seemed like civilian vessels were revealing themselves as military craft with capabilities that defied everything the galaxy knew about human technology. "Retreat," he finally commanded. All ships full retreat, but it was too late. The human vessels had formed a perfect trap around the Korthic fleet. Every escape route was blocked by ships that appeared from stealth. The raiders who had come to conquer a helpless colony found themselves completely surrounded by a military force that operated on a level they couldn't comprehend. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. When it was over, 74 Korthic ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 13 vessels managed to escape, and they were badly damaged. The mighty Iron Fang itself was a burning wreck, its hull torn apart by weapons that had seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Warlord Brutex stood in his damaged command center, staring at the tactical display that showed the complete destruction of his fleet. The humans hadn't just defeated him, they had made it look easy. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" Peter Chun's face appeared on the communication screen one final time. "You attacked a human colony," he said simply. "That was your mistake. We've been preparing for this moment for 20 years. Did you really think we would settle worlds without the ability to defend them?" Brutex's yellow eyes blazed with fury and fear. "The galaxy will hear about this. Everyone will know that humans are not what they pretend to be." "Yes, they will," Chun agreed. "And perhaps next time they'll think twice before attacking peaceful civilians." The communication ended, leaving Brutex alone with the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. In a single battle, the Korthic raiders had been broken. But, more importantly, the galaxy was about to learn that. The news spread through the galactic underworld like wildfire. In dark corners of space stations and hidden pirate bases, the story was told and retold. The mighty Korthic raiders had been destroyed by humans. Not defeated, destroyed. Out of 87 ships, only 13 had escaped, and those were barely functional. At first, nobody believed it. General Krekstar of the Vorthic Empire Intelligence Division sat in his office on the military world of Vorthic Prime. The 7-foot-tall warrior had spent his entire career analyzing threats to the Empire. When the first reports about the Korthic defeat reached his desk, he threw them away. "Impossible," he growled to his aide, Colonel Vexahan. "Humans don't have the technology to defeat a single Korthic ship, let alone an entire fleet." But more reports kept coming. Survivors from the battle were talking to anyone who would listen. Security footage from nearby systems showed the damaged Korthic vessels limping away from human space. Most disturbing of all, the human colony was still there, completely undamaged. "Sir," Colonel Vexahan said carefully, "perhaps we should investigate these claims." Krekstar's red eyes narrowed. "Very well. Send a reconnaissance team to observe human activities. But I want them to maintain complete secrecy. If the humans have developed new weapons, we need to know about them." The Vorthic spy ship Ghostblade arrived at the edge of human space 3 days later. Its crew expected to find the same primitive settlements they had always dismissed. Instead, they discovered something that made their blood run cold. The human civilian ships moving between colonies were broadcasting standard commercial signals. But deep scans revealed energy signatures that matched military-grade equipment. The cargo vessels were actually armed with weapons that could threaten a Vorthic battleship. "Commander," the ship's scanner operator reported, "I'm detecting at least 40 vessels in this system alone. All of them are showing false civilian markings." Commander Zexmol stared at the tactical display. "Are you telling me every human ship is actually a warship?" "It appears so, sir." They're using some kind of stealth technology to hide their true capabilities. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian Collective's intelligence headquarters, High Analyst Vic Zernera was reaching the same disturbing conclusions. The blue-scaled female had spent years studying human scientific expeditions throughout Zephyrian space. Those expeditions had always seemed harmless, small groups of humans, collecting plant samples and studying alien cultures. Now she realized the truth. Every human scientist had been a spy. Dr. Helen Ward, she said to her assistant, pulling up a file on her computer. Human xenobiology researcher. Requested access to our technology labs for cultural exchange purposes. The assistant nodded. Yes, she spent 6 months studying our energy systems. Very polite, very respectful. Never asked any sensitive questions. Except, she didn't need to ask questions, Exonera said grimly. She just needed to observe. Look at this analysis of the weapons used against the Korthik. The energy patterns match our own technology, but improved. They took our designs and made them better. Across the galaxy, other intelligence agencies were making similar discoveries. The humans they had dismissed as primitive explorers had been conducting the most successful espionage operation in galactic history. For decades, they had been studying alien technology, mapping military installations, and analyzing the weaknesses of every major species. On Earth, the facade was finally being dropped. President Richard Davis stood before the Global Defense Council in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. The men and women in the room represented every major nation on the planet. They had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. A secret is out, Davis announced. Our intelligence networks report that major governments across the galaxy are beginning to understand what we've been doing. It's time for Phase 6. Admiral Susan Palmer, the head of Earth's true space fleet, activated a holographic display. Our hidden bases are reporting ready status. Luna Base, Mars Command, and the asteroid installations are all operational. The display showed the solar system as it really was, not a lightly defended backwater, but a fortress that could withstand assault from any force in the galaxy. The moon was covered with weapons installations disguised as mining operations. Mars hosted a fleet of warships hidden in artificial canyons. The asteroid belt contained hundreds of automated defense platforms. What about our forces outside the solar system? Davis asked. 47 hidden fleets positioned at strategic points throughout human space, Palmer replied. Each one is equipped with technology that's at least 50 years ahead of anything the galaxy has seen. General Kate Phillips stepped forward. Sir, we're receiving communication requests from the Galactic Council. They want immediate explanations for the Korthik incident. Davis smiled grimly. I think it's time we gave them one. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's history. Every major species had representatives present, and the tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. They had gathered to discuss the human situation, a problem that had appeared overnight and threatened to change everything. Ambassador Jake Morrison entered the chamber looking exactly as he had months before. He wore the same simple uniform and carried himself with the same quiet dignity. But everyone in the room now looked at him differently. Commander Zelthar of the Vorthic Empire stood as Jake took his seat. Human, he growled, you will explain how your pathetic species destroyed the Korthik fleet. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces that had once mocked him. I'm happy to explain, he said calmly. But first, let me correct a misunderstanding. We didn't destroy the Korthik fleet. We defended ourselves against pirates who attacked one of our colonies. Defended? High Counselor Vexara's musical voice carried a sharp edge. Your species was classified as a Category 5 non-threat. You claim to have only primitive weapons and chemical propulsion. We never claimed anything, Jake replied. We simply reported what you expected to hear. You assumed we were weak because we chose to appear weak. The council speaker's artificial voice filled the chamber. You deliberately deceived this council about your military capabilities. No, Jake said firmly. We told you exactly what we wanted you to know. The fault isn't in our honesty. It's in your assumptions. Commander Zelthar slammed his fist on the table. You made us believe you were defenseless prey. We made you believe what you wanted to believe, Jake corrected. Every piece of information we provided was technically accurate. We do use chemical propulsion for some of our civilian vessels. We do have energy weapons. They're just not the basic ones you assumed. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives from dozens of species demanded explanations, accused humans of treachery, and called for immediate military action. But Jake Morrison sat quietly through it all, waiting for the noise to die down. When the chamber finally grew quiet, he stood up. If you want to understand what happened to the Korthik, you need to understand something fundamental about humanity. We don't just fight wars. We plan them. For 20 years, we've been preparing for the moment when someone would test our defenses. Impossible, Vexara said. We've monitored your activities. We've seen your technology. You're centuries behind our capabilities. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. You've seen what we wanted you to see. Every human you've encountered has been playing a role designed to reinforce your preconceptions. Our diplomats appeared humble and peaceful. Our scientists seemed interested only in learning from your superior knowledge. Our traders looked like simple merchants trying to make a living. You're saying every human we've met has been lying to us? Another representative asked. I'm saying every human you've met has been a professional, Jake replied. We've been conducting intelligence operations, mapping your territories, analyzing your weaknesses, and preparing for the day when someone would inevitably attack us. The implications of this statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. Every species present began to realize that their most sensitive military secrets might have been compromised. The humans they had dismissed as harmless observers had been gathering intelligence for decades. This is an act of war, Commander Zelthar declared. You have violated every principle of galactic law. Have we? Jake asked calmly. Show me the law that says we can't defend ourselves. Show me the regulation that requires us to reveal our true capabilities to potential enemies. The council speaker's artificial voice cut through the arguments. The human representative makes a valid point. There is no galactic law requiring military transparency. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed as the station's sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from the direction of Earth's solar system. What is happening? Vexara demanded. The main display screen activated, showing the space around Nexus Prime. A fleet of ships was emerging from hyperspace, but these weren't the simple vessels the galaxy had come to expect from humanity. These ships were massive, sleek, and clearly designed for one purpose. War. At the head of the fleet was a vessel that dwarfed even the largest Vorthic battleship. Its hull was black as space itself, and weapon ports along its sides suggested firepower. That could leave. 3 weeks after the emergency council session, the galaxy was in chaos. The revelation of Earth's true military power had shattered the existing balance of power. Trade routes were disrupted as species reconsidered their relationships with humanity. Military alliances were being questioned. Most importantly, the Vorthic Empire was preparing for war. Commander Zelthar stood before the war council of the Vorthic Empire on their home world. The massive chamber was filled with the Empire's greatest military leaders, their red-scaled faces showing the fury that had been building since the humans revealed their deception. The humans have made fools of us all, Zelthar declared. 4. 20 years. They have been spying on our territories, studying our defenses, and preparing to conquer the galaxy. This cannot be allowed to continue. General Krextar, the intelligence chief, stepped forward. Our analysis confirms that human agents have infiltrated every major government. They know our military capabilities better than we know them ourselves. Then we must strike before they can use that knowledge against us, said Admiral Vexther, commander of the Vorthic fleet. I propose a full military assault on the human home system. We destroy Earth, and their entire threat is eliminated. The War Council erupted in agreement. Voices called for immediate action, total war, and the complete destruction of humanity. The Vorthic had never backed down from a fight, and they weren't about to start now. We will not face this threat alone, Zelthar announced. I have been in contact with other species who share our concerns. The Zephyrian Collective, the Obsidian Empire, and 7 other governments have agreed to join us. Within days, the largest military fleet in galactic history was assembled. 3,000 warships from 11 different species gathered at the edge of human space. The combined firepower was enough to destroy entire star systems. No force in known history could stand against such an armada. Warlord Vexcan, the overall commander of the Allied fleet, broadcast a message to Earth from his flagship, the massive Vorthic Dreadnought Destroyer of Worlds. Humans of Earth, his voice boomed across space, you have deceived and threatened the peaceful species of this galaxy. Surrender immediately, and you will be allowed to live as servants to your betters. Resist, and your entire species will be eliminated. The response came not from Earth's government, but from Admiral Palmer aboard the UES Defiant. Commander, Vexcan, you are trespassing in human space. You have 30 minutes to withdraw your forces, or we will consider this an act of war. Vexcan's laughter echoed through his ship's communication system. Act of war? Look around you, human. You face 3,000 ships from the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Your pathetic fleet cannot hope to match our strength. You're about to find out, Palmer replied calmly. The human response began immediately, but not in the way the Allied fleet expected. Instead of massing for a traditional battle, Earth's ships seemed to simply vanish. One moment they were visible on sensors, the next they had disappeared completely. Where did they go? Vexcan demanded from his bridge. Unknown, sir, his sensor operator replied. All human vessels have dropped off our scans. It's as if they never existed. What the Allied fleet didn't know was that humanity had developed stealth technology far beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. The human ships hadn't retreated. They had become invisible and were moving into attack positions. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the UE Science sister ship, the UES Intrepid. From his position seemingly empty space, he watched the enemy fleet maintain their formation. They were confident in their numbers, certain that humanity couldn't possibly match their firepower. All ships report ready, his tactical officer, Commander Linda Brooks, announced. Phase 7 is active. Execute, Martinez ordered. The attack came from everywhere at once. Human ships materialized from stealth positions throughout the enemy. Formation, their weapons already firing. But these weren't the energy beams or projectiles the galaxy expected. Earth's weapons worked on principles that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Gravitational pulse. Cannons created miniature black holes that tore enemy ships apart from the inside. Quantum disruptors phased enemy hulls out of normal space, causing them to simply cease to exist. Temporal distortion fields slowed enemy weapons to a crawl while human ships moved at normal speed. The Allied fleet found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see using weapons they couldn't understand. Their superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't target their opponents. Their advanced shields were useless against attacks that bypassed normal space entirely. Impossible. Vigscan roared as his flagship's hull began to buckle under. Gravitational stress. No species has this kind of technology. Admiral Palmer's voice came through the communication system. You assumed we were primitive because we appeared primitive. You assumed we were weak because we acted weak. Those assumptions are going to cost you everything. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The human fleet moved through the enemy formation like ghosts, appearing only long enough to destroy their targets before vanishing again. Ships that had seen invincible moments before were reduced to wreckage by weapons that their designers had never imagined. Commander Linda Brooks watched the tactical display as enemy vessels disappeared one by one. Sir, the Zephyrian contingent is attempting to retreat. Let them go, Martinez replied. We want survivors to spread the word. On the bridge of the Destroyer of Worlds, Warlord Vexkin watched his mighty fleet being systematically destroyed. 3,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 500 in less than 2 hours. The humans weren't just winning, they were demonstrating complete superiority. All ships, he commanded through gritted teeth, full retreat. Abandon the assault. But it was too late for an organized withdrawal. The human ships had surrounded the Allied fleet completely. Every escape route was blocked by enemies that could attack without being seen in return. This is Admiral Palmer to all enemy vessels. The human commander's voice filled space. You came here to destroy our home world. You brought 3,000 ships to accomplish what you thought would be easy genocide. Now you understand why that was a mistake. The surviving Allied ships found themselves being herded toward a single location. The humans weren't trying to destroy them all. They were making a point. Of the 3,000 ships that had attacked, only 200 were allowed to escape. The rest were either destroyed or captured as the battered remnants of the Allied fleet limped away from human space. They carried with them the most important intelligence in galactic history. Humanity wasn't just another species trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. They were the apex predators, and they had been pretending to be prey. The news of the defeat spread faster than the speed of light. Every government, every military organization, every criminal enterprise in the galaxy learned the same lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated ever again. On Earth, President Davis addressed the world from the same bunker where the war had been planned. Citizens of Earth, he began, today we revealed our true strength to the galaxy. For 20 years, we have prepared for this moment. The test has been passed. The reaction across human space was one of quiet satisfaction rather than celebration. This victory had been inevitable, planned for decades by the finest military minds in human history. The real accomplishment wasn't winning the battle. It was maintaining the deception long enough to achieve total strategic surprise. 3 months later, Ambassador Jake Morrison entered the Galactic Council chambers for the final time as Earth's humble representative. The other delegates looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect that would have been impossible to imagine before the war. The Council recognizes the representative from Earth, the Council speaker announced. Jake stood, but this time he didn't look like the quiet diplomat who had been mocked and dismissed. He carried himself with the confidence of someone representing the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Thank you, he said simply. I'm here to announce that Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. The chamber buzzed with surprised voices. Commander Zelthar, one of the few Vorthic survivors of the recent battle, leaned forward. You're abandoning the Council? We're establishing our own, Jake replied. The Terran Alliance will consist of human worlds and any species that wish to join us under the principles of mutual respect and genuine cooperation. And what about the rest of us? Vexara asked. Her musical voice carried a note of fear that hadn't been there before. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces that had once laughed at humanity's apparent weakness. You'll continue to govern yourselves as you always have, but you'll do so knowing that humanity is watching. The next time anyone considers attacking peaceful civilians because they appear defenseless, remember what happened to the Korthic raiders. Remember what happened to your allied fleet. He paused to let his words sink in. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but it's about to become much safer. Not because we've conquered it, but because we've made it clear that aggression has consequences. As Jake Morrison walked out of the chamber for the last time, he left behind a galaxy that had learned the most important lesson in its history. Appearances could be deceiving. Strength could.